Larry Satchwell here again on a beautiful, crisp spring morning. I've got these 3 goats that I've had for several months, and they're still very wild. Can only feed a couple of them by hand. So we have 2 horses and a 2-horse stall. One of the horses is off for some training, so I've got an opportunity here to use one of the stalls to feed the goats in, and entrap them in there so I can get a vet out here. These goats have never had any vet look at them. They haven't had any shots, and they appear to be really healthy, but I know I've got to get some shots in these goats for them to remain that way. So today's project is to make a goat stand, so when the vet is out here, he or she can have a decent crack at getting some blood from these goats and testing all the things we need to test and giving them some shots. That's why I need a milk stand today. I've got this old lumber from Deck Rebuild, and I'm going to use it. It's not great lumber, but for my purposes, it's going to suffice. So I'm going to cut it to length. It's 12 feet. I'm going to get it cut to length here. I'm using the plans from the Homestead Handyman. He put up some great plans. Thank you, Homestead Handyman. Great job in that video, and I'm basically going to do what you did. There's no sense in reinventing the wheel. I was in education for 32 years, and if you're in education, you know that about every year we try to reinvent the wheel instead of just doing what was basically good for when I was in school. Got me where I am today. Well, maybe that's not so good. Anyway, I'm going to use his plans, and I appreciate that very much, Homestead Handyman. I'm going to give you credit. I'm going to put it down below in the description. So I'm going to get these boards cut up. I'm a big proponent of reusing anything I can reuse. And again, I'm just rough cutting these to size, and I'm going to take them down into the shop where it's a lot warmer. I've got my rough cut pieces out here. I haven't taken them into the shop yet. It's still chilly out, but I want to clean these up a little bit before I take them in there. And for that, I'm going to use my Restorer tool. I tried the wire brush on it. That was a little too aggressive, so I've got a 60 grit piece of sandpaper on here. And get my safety gear on here and clean this stuff up before I take it into the shop. One of the reasons I want to clean it up good is because it's got a lot of grit in it. And I'm going to be using a $100 saw blade to cross-cut this, and about a $65 blade to rip it. And I don't want to dull those tools any more than I have to. As you can see, that Restorer makes quick work of it. It's nice and light, easy to use. And I'm going to clean up the rest of these boards, and then I'll cut them to true size. Well, I'm sure this is overkill, but since I'm only using 1-inch lumber, I'm going to put some braces on here. I'm using Titebond 3, so I know this thing's going to be out in the weather. And the thing I want to make sure is, and I've messed this up many a times, that I have a left and a right. So I just reviewed the video, and he's got them on this way, so I'm just going to tack these on with some 2-inch nails until the glue dries, and I can go on working. I've mitered the edge here so that just this side is facing, is on the ground. The ground in a barnyard is seldom level, and this way I don't have to worry about it tipping this direction. In the video, the handyman said these were 56 inches long, but then at the end of the video, they look about a little over waist high for him. So unless he's about 8 feet tall, I don't think they're actually 56 inches long. I had a bad spot on this board, so I cut it down to 52. Just like the handyman, I'm going to be using screws to tie this all together with, so if I need to make some adjustments, I can take it apart at that time. He also said the uprights were 48 inches long, I believe, but then he's got like 10 inches on the other side of those, so I'm not exactly sure what's going to go on. Yeah, I didn't hold the nail gun right, so I've got to deal with that. John Hines has a good video on how to hold the nail gun to avoid this. And this grain, looking at the end here, it just curves right out, and that skinny 16 gauge nail just followed that grain perfectly. This is going to be on the inside. I don't want anything to get caught on it. But I don't think I can pull it out. So I'll hammer that flush. Good thing this isn't fine furniture. Even though it's a utility piece, I'd like to practice good habits. So as Norm Abrams would say, it's time for some assembly. I'm going to roughly square this. I know it's not going to be square, but I'm putting this in at flush with the top of this little support piece. Using 2-inch deck screws. I really didn't like the way those other screws were driving, and there's some cracks right here on this ugly piece of wood, so I'm going to pre-drill this one. Both sides assembled. I'm ready to put on the ends. I've got it clamped up just like the Homestead Handyman. That takes some fiddling around. I mean, he's got some skills. So I'm ready to screw this in. So the Handyman had a fairing stick is what it's called, and I've had those before. I've never had one that I keep because I usually make it for the specific job. But I'm going to use my aluminum ruler here. I've marked off the center of the 29 and the 42, and I've got the center of the ruler here on 18. It's 1 inch wide, and I'm going to pull this over until it's at the line there, and I'm going to mark that side, and I'm going to come over here and do the same thing on this side. Now I've got it cut out, I've clamped them together, and I'm going to use my Restore tool to smooth this out. This is the perfect tool for this because it gets right down in there. Another nice thing about this is that now I've got it clamped up singly, and instead of getting out the router bit and going to all that trouble, I can round off this edge here with my Restore. Well, I've got this clamped up here. I've got the bar here at 30 inches from the ground, and my yoke is 48 inches. Sticks out quite a bit at the bottom. I'm going to cut the top off of these uprights. At least 6 inches to start with, and then maybe more. I don't like it's just not a big enough opening, and that's going to give me a little bit more leeway. Well, as you can see, I've made quite a few modifications. I've got a big honking chain on here. I know it's overkill, but it's a piece of chain I had, didn't have to cut it. I think it'll work. These are a couple of eye bolts I already had, but I cut this down by 1 inch. I went ahead and took this piece off and cut this down. I added the back piece here. You may have noticed I haven't put the seat on yet. The Homestead Handyman had already put his seat on, but I thought it was a lot easier to work on the bottom down there and get all the adjustments on and make it that way. I think this is going to work. Of course, once we get a goat head in there, we're going to have to change it. I don't have anything to make a feeder out of here right now, so I'm going to go out and get something at the feed store. It's become a pretty nice day outside, so I'm going to take this outside and put the seat on. It's a little easier to carry right now. It's a little lighter. Go ahead and fast forward this and put these on. That way you won't be bothered by the dog barking and the road noise. Here it is. I got the deck on. Again, recycled lumber, this time from my daughter and her husband's deck. I just, again, used my Restore tool at 60 grit paper and sanded it smooth here. It's ready to go. Thank you, Homestead Handyman. I really enjoyed your video and your channel. You've got some great stuff on there. And I'm going to get this hauled down to the barn and see if I can get a goat head in there. Good girl. Good girl. Well, that worked. I'm going to have to make some adjustments on that other eye bolt. It never got on the eye bolt. I think that's going to work. By the way, my yoke turned out to be 46 inches long and the legs 40 inches long. Everything else is pretty much the same as the handyman said.